we are live. I've still got my coffee from this morning, Stormy.
Just keep drinking it.
I know. I've got to keep my energy at least for this next hour because we've got an hour full of facility management talk. Are you ready to talk to some facility managers, Stormy?
Absolutely. Let's talk FM.
Now you've been doing this for a long time, and I want to let folks, as folks are coming in, I see some of our guests backstage, which is awesome. You've been doing this for a long time. You've been talking to folks across the nation in your consulting career, and you've been speaking across the country and speaking at different. What is it about the facility management and speaking when you're thinking about a presentation and when you were going to speak? What is it that goes through your head about those types of events for you?
Well, it's different for everybody. For us and for me, it's an opportunity for me to give good information back based on our experience. And I've always kind of spoken outside the box. I normally talk about management issues that most people don't talk about. And my fun story is 30 some odd years ago, gave a presentation at the IFMA World Workplace, and they were reluctant to accept it. It was on customer service. And the president of IFMA said at the time to me, nobody's going to come to that. People on FM aren't interested in marketing and customer service. And I gave the presentation. It was standing room only. We had like 200 people. That was back when they didn't have as many presentations. People were like, wow, this is something really new. We need to do that. So I like to look at what topics in the management world people are talking about. Remember when we talked about best practices outside of the FM industry? So you look at the best of the best. And I like to see who's doing what and then tailor that to an FM presentation.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, see what's out there, see how you can kind of mix those things together, present something new. And if one person challenges you on your topic, then you might be on to something, right? If they
Absolutely.
say, "Oh,
Yeah.
are you sure that anybody's gonna?" Those are usually the ones that do pretty good.
Yes.
So we're excited. Thank you for joining us. Facility management focus. We're talking to facility management professionals across the country. And what's interesting about this, each one of these folks, they have a different challenge, a different environment. They're thinking about different things, but there's still that commonality. Before we make something, before we help someone, before we do a ball game, we've got to have the facilities. Everything has to be working properly. So it's a big deal. It's a
Right.
big deal.
Yep. There are core competencies. I mean, that's why we have come up as an industry with the core competencies that are important for all FM personnel managers to have. And then you have to tailor it to whatever market segment, whatever industry you're in.
Absolutely. So we're gonna bring in some of our guests. We've got some more backstage, and we will bring them in as well. I'm going to first invite Chris and Dom up to the stage here. Thank you for joining us, guys. And we'll start with Dom. And
Wow.
Dom, great to meet you. I know we've been playing phone tag here over the last couple of days.
Yes, nice to meet you finally. Meet you.
Hey, close enough. Close enough.
Yes, for sure. That's what, and as we talked about, it's very much the facilities mindset where we're putting out the fires, and we made it work when we could. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that was great to connect with you, you've got kind of an interesting, a different type of facility. Tell folks what you do.
Yes. So hi everyone, I'm Dom Mitiga with the Cleveland Guardians up here in Cleveland, Ohio, um, helping out manage our facility here, Progressive Field in Cleveland. I'm our manager of facility services. I work closely with our maintenance and custodial teams, and then pretty small team here with the Guardians management wise. We are one of the few teams that manage in-house custodial and maintenance. So it's myself, my coworker who oversees the maintenance crew, and then our director as well. And then we have our full-time custodial crew, and then our maintenance crew as well. And then we obviously have our seasonal staff as well, which is really starting to pick up and has been taking up a lot of time lately. So I think we're one of 3 teams in Major League Baseball that does in-house custodial. So an interesting wrinkle to the industry and what we do, but then being in the climate that we're in, there's a lot of different aspects as well that we talked about.
Now, I'm just curious, do you have, since you're one of the few facilities, do they have a lot of vendors that want to they want to do the outside vendors wants to take that position? How do they deal with that?
For sure.
What-
That's been something. So I joined the team 4 years ago. And I guess before COVID, it was a completely different operation where we had no issues with staffing. And then there was pre-COVID. And now, so our staff par levels before COVID was about 120, and we had no issue filling that. And now post-COVID with new spaces and all that, we're hoping to be closer to 170, but we only have about 70 in-house staff right now.
Yeah.
So there is a ton of room for outside services to assist, and they do. And in Northeast Ohio, not that it's oversaturated by any means, but it's a pretty saturated market where there's many different players in the game, and they're willing to help out, all providing relatively the same type of service. But I guess I should say when I started the 3 seasons ago, we were about at 40 because Major League Baseball implemented a vaccination policy, and that changed the landscape again. We had COVID with people just being out, but then the vaccination policy caused even more individuals to not come back in-house. So we were leaning heavily on outside service, and then each year it's progressively gotten better in-house, but still we're not to where we need to be, but we're getting there.
Well, that's awesome. And we're going to have some additional questions for you. I'm going to keep going kind of around the horn here. I want to welcome Chris Everett. And Chris, you're at the VCOM campus, but I know you've been doing facility management at a lot of different types of facilities, haven't you?
That's correct. Yeah, I've got a pretty broad background of where I've been from. Financial top companies to this school.
Yes, absolutely. I think at one point you were in more of like an office type environment, if I remember correctly. And that had a lot of technology, a lot of office moves, a lot of different things. Tell me about that transition going from something like that, where I know there was a lot of logistical challenges there, and then to VCOM. Tell me about the good, the bad, and kind of what your take on going from an office environment into a college type facility.
Well, the office type was a company that I worked for that did subprime lending. So it was, a lot of the layouts were cube farms per se. But we had offices, and we had multiple buildings within, I don't know, half a mile of each other. So that was challenging to say the least. And then we would move 100 people a month easy. That got real old real fast. This job came open at the school, much less logistical, dealing with students and stuff, but it's a challenge in itself.
Different set of issues there, and I guess working with different companies, that you have different managerial situations. We talked about that in the beginning, the management, working with the management. What has that been like? How important is it for a facility manager to have a good relationship with the management folks?
Oh, absolutely great. The previous one I had, where I was at the financial group, extremely difficult. My manager was more of a save every nickel. He would complain about why we have the fire alarms tested. It's the law. You got to do it. Stuff like that. Where this situation here at VCOM is much different. It's there's a standing order when I was hired that no deferred maintenance, regardless. We don't care what it costs. No deferred maintenance. Your checkbook is open. Your checkbook is open in regards to that. So that has been just unbelievably easier to deal with.
I'd love to hear what Bill Wepner says about that right there, Bill. I believe you're on mute, but we'd love to get your input.
Yeah, first off, my apologies. facilities issues kept me from getting here, but
Oh, no,
that's
no,
all
no.
taken care of. So
Well, good.
we move forward.
Yeah.
But no, the question to how important it is to have a good working relationship with the rest of the management and the leadership team. That's imperative. Um, and also with the workers themselves. I mean, you have to have a good relationship with everybody for any type of facilities work, because others are going to find things most likely before you do. And if they don't tell you, they're only going to get worse. And then by the time you find it, uh, it might be a huge problem. As an example, we had a watering system for some trees when this building was first put in. Now it got turned off after the first year because it wasn't needed. However, some of those piping underground went quite a distance away from the building. Well, one of them sprung a leak a few years ago, and we actually found it because somebody told us, hey, there's a soft spot over there. And when we got our water bill for that month, it was 16 times what it should be for 1 month. And we estimate it was only running for about a week. Um, but that's something, had we not found it by somebody seeing it and just reporting it, I'm sure we would have probably been dealing with about one that was about maybe 16 times our yearly water bill. So, like I
Oh,
said,
wow. That's interesting. That makes me think of Dom and when they're out of toilet paper or the restroom needs attention, things like that. Somebody's got to tell you when you've got a problem in your facility. Is that a big deal within the Cleveland Guardians part?
Yeah, so that's same situation, Bill. I mean, we've had that at the ballpark, especially with construction going on right now. There were areas where the heat was cut and we weren't aware of it, and the aspect of knowing people, just the relationship with people, the communication always has to be open. We rely heavily on our 24/7 security team. They do a great job of making their rounds. They're the ones who make us aware of any of those leaks that are missed by either the system because it's either shut down or it's not into that area yet. We're in the transition of a new building automation system, so that's going to be huge for those types of things where it will notify the necessary people if it is showing unrealistic or unnecessary usage. But then that example about the toilet paper and paper towels, like in a way, we have a building automation system for that as well called Colo Smart Restroom Technology from Georgia Pacific. And that's been something that's been great for us and anyone in a warehouse, entertainment venue, anything where there's high traffic restrooms. I highly recommend Colo. It's been awesome for us. We implemented it 2 years ago. And basically what it is, it's just an app on your phone that notifies you. I can actually pull it up, make it a little bit easier, showing and talking through. But it literally shows you throughout the whole ballpark, every section, what is where. Obviously, we're out of season right now, so you can see it a little bit differently where
Yeah.
there are a bunch of notifications, but that's just because nothing's up and running.
Yeah.
But during the season, it saves our staff a ton of time. Last season alone, I think it was 700 plus labor hours because the first thing our supervisors would do, they'd come in and check the restrooms, check the stock in the restrooms to make sure that no fan would go without toilet paper, paper towels, because it's not something that can make an experience, but it can break an experience.
Sure.
So being able to reallocate our hours doing that has been huge for us. So, I mean, the building automation aspect, knowing the people, the communication aspect, all of it is huge. And what you both were talking about at the beginning, the fan experience, customer experience type thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to talk to Stormy a little bit. We've met 3 facility manager professionals. I want to talk to all of y'all a little more here, but based on your experience and the different challenges that they have, we have a ballpark, we have more of an industrial type warehousing type facility, and then we've got both the office and the talk about your experience working with those types of facilities and some of the challenges and some of the things that we've talked about. Anything come to mind, Stormy?
Yeah, I was laughing when Dom was talking a little bit. We had a client once in a sports venue with a retractable roof on their stadium, and that was one of the big issues. And there was a major sports event, and they couldn't get the roof to close, and it rained, and it was, one of those things. So, I mean, I think back to that, but it depends on how much interaction the facilities organization has with the external public versus your internal customers. and how you are able to track. I love what Dom was talking about in terms of the smart app on his phone. That's the wave of the future. That's where technology is going. And one of the things, I just have finished an article that I have to submit on kind of what it means when return to office is being mandated and what are the implications for our industry. And one of the things that people who are coming back to work are saying is they want a work order management system that is faster than what they've seen before, because they're used to scheduling their own maintenance in their own venues, and they now are much more demanding. And so I think that's an issue that we're all going to have to worry about. It's particularly critical in college and university environments, where you have a flow of students and visitors and potential students coming all the time. And then in manufacturing environments, those people who are on the plant floor have different issues. They're focused on safety. They're focused on, production. They're focused on speed to market. So you have to take all of that into account and be involved in all of those decisions to make sure you're on top of your game as a facility professional. It's very different than a traditional office.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what's interesting. I mean, Bill, you listen to Dom and Chris. They're in completely different facilities than you are. I know you had an extensive military career, if I remember correctly, and I know that seems to be something that I see a lot in facility management professionals. Maybe the way that their mind thinks or the way that they approach their day. Why is it that you think that? And do you think there's something you can take away from hearing how other folks manage challenges, even if they're not in your facility, Bill?
No, I think the reason for that in the military is because everything is integrated. You have to be. You could be doing one job in one location, you get sent to a new unit, and now you're doing a different job. It all goes back to the leadership, not so much the actual job you're doing, but the leadership you need to perform that job to lead others. So you may get, like, I mean, I worked logistics, I worked explosive safety. I worked in a torpedo manufacturing plant. I worked a lot of different places, and you start seeing how it's all integrated. It's all tied together. So you learn that everything is a part of something else, and the facility affects everybody. You can sit there and say, hey, what this place does here is it moves product out the door. But if the facility ain't working, if those dock doors don't work, you ain't getting product out the door. Everything's connected, and that's a big part of Chris talking about working with the management team and everything. You have to be able to communicate that also. If people don't understand how your position is vital to them getting their job done, it's not going to end well. If the operations side does not realize that, hey, we have to perform maintenance on these doors, or when they shut down, you ain't going to have any job. They're much more likely to go, okay, hey, I got a day here. I can shut down these 5 doors for inspections or whatever it is. They're much more apt to play along. I don't even want to say play along, but to be part of it and to realize that, hey, it's all one big team here. Yeah, we got a catcher, we got a pitcher, but we're all playing baseball. We're all on the same team. So I think that's something the military taught me. Just that regardless of where you are in the organization, you better do that job as best you can. And next time you go to another unit, you may be in a completely other role. And that's when you're going to realize how much that past role or affects your current role.
There you go. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as well. You've got that experience being in different facilities, doing different things, and so that allows you. Okay, it's kind of only the names change. The basic underlying principles that all of you folks, all facility management professionals, have to kind of think through is very similar in that way. I would like to talk to Chris again and find out. And Sarah, I'm going to bring Sarah up here. She says integrated facilities management is so key in everything that we do, and that is certainly the truth. Chris, I'd like to hear a little more about your background before you got into facilities management. How did that become the career path for Chris Everett?
I actually started a company that did external maintenance for ground scare, and it kind of got bigger and bigger. And then some of our customers, larger customers, and we dealt with a lot of BMW customers here in
Oh, wow.
Spartanburg, and they wanted to know if we would be interested in doing internal maintenance. So it kind of slowly progressed from there, and I ran that company for 23 years, and we had sales of, I don't know, 4 million a year. And gentlemen come along and wanted to buy me out. And at that point, I was tired of dealing with the public and said, okay. So then, I could have retired and, moved on, but I decided, that I'm the kind of I'm a hands-on person. I was bored in 3 months out of my mind. So, got another job, got the job at with the Johnson Group for the cube farm, so to speak, and just kind of stayed with it, and here I am.
Yeah. Can't get out of it now, can you?
No,
You like it too
no.
much.
Yeah, it's like a drug, I guess. Better let it go.
That's right. But
I've always been the type you can stand back when you do something, you stand back and say, I did that, or I fixed that, or, it's kind of a, I don't know, lack of a better term, a pride thing.
oh, absolutely. You want to. I think you probably have to have that fixer type mentality. Bill, did you have the? I'm sure Bill's got the fixer type mentality. What is it about facilities management? What do you love, and what's the most challenging part, Bill?
Well, I think the best thing in that it's exactly what you were alluding to, that fix it thing. I used to tell people I'd probably make a really good ditch digger, because at the end of the day, I could look back and I could see how long that ditch was, and I'd feel like
Yeah.
I accomplished something.
Yeah.
And I have had times in my career where I worked in an office pretty much all day long. It was in acquisitions, and acquisitions may be something that takes 2 years to get a product in. So there's not, when you go home at night and you're like, what did I accomplish? And you can't see anything. Um, yeah, I wasn't made for that. Did a good job, hey, put every effort into it, but it was just something, call it ego, call it whatever. But when you went home at night, you didn't feel that sense of accomplishment. Now, a few of the projects got done before I left that place, so I was able to go, wow, that took 3 years, but I got that accomplished.
Yeah.
But in facilities, you see it in real time. Some things, yeah, some projects are a little bigger, but it's a constant. There's always something that needs fixed, and it is that task oriented. That, okay, let's get it fixed. Let's accomplish the mission, whatever that is. Whether it's toilet paper, whether it's the coffee machine's down. Yeah, never thought I'd be the coffee guy here, but the coffee machine's down. Something, no matter what it is, when people bring you an issue, that's your job. You have to solve their issues.
Yeah.
And there is an ego part of that, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It keeps you going. It gives you a sense of purpose, even if
Hey,
it's the coffee machine, which I don't drink coffee either. So, so I
had to
got my
fix that.
tea right here. So.
Well, I think attitude. My co-host Stormy Friday talked a little bit about attitude last week, didn't you, Stormy?
Yeah. And
Eh,
I think that, to Bill's point, it's the problem solving aspect. And in facilities, you never know what problem somebody's going to bring to you. It may be something you're not even accustomed to. But the fact that in most organizations, if nobody else knows how to do it, you go to facilities because they'll figure it out. And that's what you want to be known for. And that's the kind of can-do attitude that most good facility professionals have. We may not be the right solution, but we'll help you find it. And that, I think, is what most FM organizations want to be known for. We're the problem solvers.
That's an interesting point. Now that I'm kind of thinking about that, just like Bill got a call, and I guarantee you fixed that coffee maker, didn't you?
Well, I didn't fix a coffee maker, but I called somebody who could. To Stormy's
We know
point,
a guy. Yeah, we
well,
know a
yeah,
guy who knows
exactly.
a guy
You
who
ain't
knows
got
a
to be
guy.
the fix it guy, but you got to
Yep.
be a guy who knows the fix it guy. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes I feel like we're vanilla ice. If there's a problem, I'll solve it.
Hey,
So,
there you
but
go.
but
I
yeah, I
love
didn't want to
it.
go that far back. But hey, sometimes you got to go that far
Hey, I
back.
was out there with it, Bill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not going to dance for y'all because I'm not going to,
yeah,
subject you to that. So, but no, you have to be, as Stormy was saying, you got to be the person who can find how to fix that. You might not, and just like she said, you may get something brought to you that you're like, I have no clue what you're even talking about right now. But you have them take you to it. They show you. You start looking at it and going, okay, who can I call? Who do I know? Or if I don't know anybody, how do I find somebody who can fix this
Exactly.
issue and fix it quickly? So it's not about being the know-it-all. Sometimes it's not knowing how to fix it. It's knowing who to contact, who can fix it for you.
it's that desire to help.
Right.
You're the kind of person, if they've got a problem, they're gonna work on. You're gonna see it through. You're gonna find a way. And everybody, if somebody came to me and had a sales or business development or podcast, we all want to be valuable to other folks, and I think facility management provides that opportunity. It's, hey, some facility folks are doing IT and technology stuff as well, but there's always somebody to call. Hey, this doesn't work. Call Bill. Bill will figure it out. Chris will figure it out. Dom, have you ever had to work on a coffee maker?
We have. That's it. Name something, name anything. It's likely that our maintenance guys have done it. That's what one of them just popped in for.
Yeah, yeah.
We get calls for very obscene things, especially in the clubhouse. You'll never guess what.
Oh man.
I know that was actually something, and Kenny Lofton talked about it on a Chris Rose podcast. Was shoot, I'm not going to remember who it was now in the 90s. Oh no, but he would always bash in the what's it called, thermostat in the clubhouse.
Oh,
And we
yeah.
actually we're under construction in our clubhouse, so it's renovated. And not Carlos Baerga, not Tommy, one of the big home run hitters in the 90s. I'm gonna forget it now, but
Yeah.
that was he would always bash in the thermostat when it was too cold, or he would make it super cold, then he'd bash it in so no one could make it warmer in there. And our
That's
maintenance
funny.
guys would always respond to it, so we cut it out and have it for our old facility. Well, our original facility manager, I should say. He built the ballpark back in the 90s, and he's still here. So we cut it out of the old clubhouse for him. But yeah, any obscene requests, that's us.
You've seen it. I've seen the thermostats be placed and like way up towards the ceiling, like 20 feet in the air, so nobody can get their hands on it. If they can get their hands on it, my understanding is people like to change it or punch it.
Yeah,
So,
well, I will say
Too
this.
hot,
I don't
too
want to say
cold.
it too
Yeah.
loud because people will hear me
yeah.
outside the office.
Quiet now.
But we disconnected the wires, so they can sit there and punch those buttons all they want. It's not changing anything.
Yeah.
So,
We advise that sometimes.
but they feel good. They feel like they've done something. So,
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Grandma mode on the in-office units for sure. It looks like
Our-
it's going down, but not changing.
Yeah, ours is the same way. It's computer controlled, so they have, they change the temperature and they feel better, and we have, they haven't done anything.
Yeah, you see the placebo effect in action
Oh, yeah.
like that. You just,
Very
oh,
much.
wow, I feel it too.
Yeah.
That's funny. I'll tell you what, let's do this. We're going to bring in two of our folks from last week, and I'm sure they've been paying attention. They may have some questions for you guys, things that maybe came to mind. We've got Sarah back with us, the bomber. Sarah, welcome back. And Ken, good to have you here as well. You share some commonality there with Chris in that you guys are both in college type campuses. Did anything that he said or anything that we spoke about here in the beginning pop out to you, Ken?
Yeah, so we actually talking about integration. We visited Chris over there because we both have anatomy labs, and so we had discussed for a while how they did things, and we finally got over there and got some good ideas for our anatomy lab. And then, of course, Chris has a beautiful complex there, and he showed us a lot of other things. We got a lot of other ideas. So, that integration with other facilities managers helps us so much. So so we already started remodeling our anatomy lab to some of the things we saw at Chris's place there.
Well, that is fantastic. I had no idea that you guys even knew each other, but that speaks to why we do this, right? We can hear things, and sometimes it's the same type of situation, and other times it's a little different. And I've got to throw Trent. We did get this comment, Trent McJunkin. He said this episode is loaded with FMs, and that's very true, and that's the way we like it. I love multiple perspectives. Speaking of which, Sarah, out of that first 30 minutes of discussion, what anything jump out to you that you wanted to talk about?
So much. Yeah, I loved when we talked about the integration piece. The integrated piece of facilities management is absolutely key to everything that we do, whether it's, and we talked about this last week, where as facilities management leaders, it's our job to take what the hourly folks are telling us, the technicians, and convey that in a concise way to executive leadership. And because that's really our jobs. And so really love that. But then going back to something that Bill said, we're all pitchers and catchers, and Dom, I played softball for years, not baseball, but it's close enough. And I was a catcher, and that is called, we're the battery. And the pitcher catcher, that's what facilities management is. We're the battery that keeps everything going. Everything that we do is operational support, whether it's janitorial to construction project management, integrating everything in. I heard a whole bunch of conversations around, CMMS, the computerized maintenance management systems, everything that we do. It's such a huge umbrella. Like I saw the video you posted the other day, Daniel, about the umbrella of facilities management. And that is a great way to describe what we do. It touches everything. And we do have to be everything to everyone. We're the first ones generally to raise our hands and say, hey, I've never done that, but it's close enough. We get to do everything in facilities management. And that's one of the things that's so exciting to me. And so, yeah, it's great to be here. Awesome to see all these FMs, other people that are so passionate about this field. Cause me, I'm on fire.
You're passionate. We love that passion and energy for facilities management. And that's a lot of times what it takes. So Stormy, I'd love to kind of talk to you about something that we talk about a lot. Dom has a team that answers to him and that he manages. Everybody needs partners. We talked about this last week, but everybody needs good partners. So finding good partners to all the way across the board. Why is that such a big deal when we talk about managing a facility?
Well, for the point that Sarah said, we can't be all things to all people. And, in the old days, I was laughing as we were talking about the whole thermostat issue. We used to have very big staff. I had almost 1,000 people working for me at one time, including some service partners, but we were all fat, dumb, and happy before somebody started looking at facilities and realized that it was a cost center, and it was an expense center rather than something that was part of the business bottom line. And once you look at what your core competencies should be, given what the management goals are for your organization, then the other services are things that you ought to let your service partners handle for you. And so you build a core staff that is responsive to the needs of your organization, your parent company, initially, so that you can be extraordinarily responsive. And then the other kinds of services that are not your core competencies, you need to have excellent service partners. And as we talked last week, people who, when you say, I need it now, they will jump for you. And finding those people, part of it is the networking, coming to sessions like this where you meet people that you can talk to about who has good service partners going on. I think maybe early on we had talked about learning journeys. As Ken said, he went to Chris's facilities, and you go and see how people are doing and what service partners are well respected by their customers. And that's how you build your portfolio of potential partners. And it's really absolutely essential. We can't do everything, even though we're the problem solvers for the whole organization.
Absolutely. I've got a question for Bill. Bill Webner, have you ever hired a vendor that you wish you didn't hire?
Short answer, yes.
Yeah. Tell me about the decision-making process when you're evaluating vendors, and picking the right one, and why that's important, and if you have an approach or a thought on that.
There is a process, and every place I've worked has a different process for that. But key things to look for is, one, if you've used them in the past. Obviously, if you've got familiarity with them, that's the best way to make that decision. If you don't, through groups such as this, getting other people's opinions that you value. The vendor in question, it was a quick thing we needed. We did a quick Google search. There was a person close by. We picked them. And then it's like, once that payment went through, trying to get them to show up was next to impossible. We did
Yeah.
get the work done, but it took much longer than what it should have. And it took me literally driving to downtown Spartanburg to their location to stand in front of the owner and make it well known that this needs to get done like now.
Yeah.
And that it should never come to that. It should
No.
not. Will we ever use that person again? No, absolutely not. Like I said, we try to keep a few on standby, if you will. You know, we might have our preferred vendor, and then we have a backup vendor, because you always got a plan for something going wrong. You might need something done now, and your preferred vendor goes, I am swamped with something else. But you always try to have a backup. That's the key thing right there. But knowing your vendors, having some type of relationship with them, go check out their facilities. I've went to and I won't mention their names too, but I'll mention their name because it's a great company, MSS. You know, we deal with them, and I've been over to their offices. I know people that work there. And I go over there, it's getting that relationship with them. That way, when you're calling, you're not just a voice on the other end of a phone.
Oh gosh.
Because
Yes.
getting a voice on the other end of the phone is good, but once I hang up that phone, somebody else is probably standing in front of my desk, and my attention is now all on them. If it's somebody I know who calls me on the phone, you're going to hold my attention much longer, because there's a personal connection there. So, but
Well,
yeah, sometimes you make a mistake and get the wrong guy. So,
you made me think. You made me think. So when we get, oftentimes when we're trying to as a business development rep, when we're saying all the right things, and Stormy, we talked about this last week, you say all the right things, but now that customer is going to be communicating with the office. Are they going to get the same type of communication, the same type of attention as the business development person or whoever that was communicating how things would go? Dom, tell me about vendors that you have worked with, or how you guys find the right vendors. Any insights on that?
Yes. Again, the process aspect, that's something where it's evolved and changed over the last my last 3 years. And our new director, he came from hospitals, so he had a certain type of service that was needed to obviously be up to the medical standards. And then now what we're doing, managing a baseball facility, is a little bit different than that. So not that his expectations changed at all. Obviously, you need high expectations wherever you are, but just the type of work that we need from the same type of contractor has evolved. So we've had ours here. He had his that he used at the hospitals. Basically, to start, we all sat down and a literal round table, talked through who we have for what. He said who he had and who he's seen be successful in the hospitals, and we reached out to all of them and RFP process for service contracts and reevaluated that whole process. And to see the level of service where we are at now compared to where we were 2-3 years ago is awesome. And same thing, there's the ones you learn that maybe you shouldn't have given the opportunity, or they just led you down a path that empty promises. And that happens. You learn and adjust, but you have the plan 1A, 1B, and you go from there. But then you rely on the ones that show that they can be relied on.
Do y'all think those types of vendor relationships, do they go sideways because of the work not being done? Why do people change vendors? Is it because the work's not getting completed, or is it because of a communication breakdown, or both?
I personally think it's both. Honestly, there you have some vendors that I in my personal experience and being at director level, we deal with relationships a bit differently. There's a lot of times where they'll communicate the worlds, but then not actually deliver. Or you'll have other ones, Stormy talked about this last week about the Peacock, where they're not strutting their successes, where they're not showing that they're actually getting it done and done well. And so I've seen both sides where someone will promise the world and underdeliver, or they'll deliver excellent service and not brag about it, for lack of a better term. And so we have to be able to see the difference in those, where you're kind of seeing through the BS, for lack of a better term, to see through to the actual work, because the work is the work. I mean, facilities management, once you understand, HVAC and plumbing and electrical and all these things, the work is the work, and then we have to just make sure it's getting done. And I know we took a pretty deep dive on that last week, but I actually think it's both.
Yeah, it's touching on a little bit of everything. I would like to hear Chris, your thoughts on vendors, finding the right vendors, and your experience there. Shoot, you had your own company. What's it like from both sides of the fence, if you will?
Well, in my situation, communication is a key. You give a vendor, and I brought an extensive list of contractors with me that I've dealt with over the years. And you bid out a project, whatever maybe this is what the project is, and you have some, which I'm dealing with right now, one that's under delivering, and they're fixing to be out, and the ones that over deliver. But you still communicate during the process of what's expected, what's not expected. This is great, this is poor, whatever it may be. But it's a difficult situation. Like Sarah mentioned, you get somebody that this vendor I'm particularly dealing with is promised the world, and they're not even close. So we've gone all around and around and around, and we need to fix these problems, and they haven't fixed them. So it's in my world, things are black and white. It's either broke or not broke. Gray areas, somewhat facilities, but typically most facilities situations is broke or not broke, or working or not working. So that you have to kind of deviate from that mentality somewhat when you're dealing with contractors. But
How do you know when to? It sounds like you've got one that's on a short leash. How do you determine when it's time to actually end it?
Well, in my situation, they're not doing a job, and we monitor them daily, basically, and then you start getting complaints from other departments that this is not being done, or that not being done, and this hadn't been done, and so then you start in my process, I start accumulating information, so when it comes time to swing the axe, you can say, this is why. And we discussed it, and it's still not getting done. So that's typically the way I deal with it.
Stormy, when you talk to folks about ending relationships or anything that pops out into your head and some of the conversation we've had there?
I think there's another element too. And one of the things we always encourage is you have to set expectations up front. Not only should you have service level agreements with your partners, your vendors, but you should have service level agreements with your internal customer organizations. Because if you don't have customer satisfaction surveys that you get on a regular basis from them about how well your partners are providing service, often you don't know some of the issues. But if you haven't set an expectation level as a facility organization, you may think you're doing a wonderful job delivering X service to a customer group, and you find out that their expectation was way off the chart about something else. And that's the upfront thing you need to do before you even begin to think about service partners and who can help, unless it's routine maintenance or things like that is kind of behind the scenes. But anything that touches on a customer population, internal or external, You need to find out what those expectation levels are and then establish a standard and make a commitment to provide that level of service that gets translated then to your vendor. Makes it a lot easier to get rid of somebody who is not performing to that level that you've already agreed upon.
Oh yeah, no, I like that. Have everything spelled out so that we know exactly when we're in alignment with those and not. I want to segue now and talk in these last 15 minutes. I was telling Stormy when we started, I was talking to AI, and I had the AI kind of simulating different office environments, but it was an interesting way to learn. But one of the questions that I was asking is a day in the life. We talked about standard operating procedures. And so I know, well, I guess the question for you folks is, do you have a standard, hey, this is my game plan for the day. This is kind of the backbone. And I know that I might get pulled in a lot of different directions, but this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to throw that to Ken Kropp and let him answer that one. Ken, do you start the day with a standard, you know what you're going to do, and then if things come up, that's fine? How do you approach your day?
Yeah, to a degree, as everyone will attest to, it changes pretty quickly. I mean, there's obviously some things, on work orders or events or just things that have got to be fixed that day. But, after the first hour or two, things go a lot of different ways in every department. So, we take care of grounds, custodial, and maintenance here, and events. And so, other work orders start coming in, emergencies, a leak, too hot, too cold in a room, something fell off the wall, all kinds of stuff. So, certainly I think we all start off that way, but when facilities know that it can go south real fast, and you adjust and keep your priorities straight, keep your vision, get back to it, but keep moving forward is the main thing.
Yeah. Dom, do you walk the facility, or do you rely on folks? Do you try to put eyes on things? Or are you still walking around?
We do. Yeah, that's what right now, again, this off season has been an anomaly just with all the construction going on. Very much an active construction site in about 80% of the ballpark. But typical game day, especially, we have a manager on duty rotation. MOD is what we call it. And it's the same thing. We have our book of SOPs that we read through at the beginning of the year. And we all need to follow a certain process to make sure the ballpark's ready for opening that day, whether it's a 1 o'clock day game or a 7 p.m. sellout on a Friday night. We have our walks pregame. Typically you'll show up 6-7 hours before gates. You'll walk the ballpark I would say quickly then, and then you have an in-depth walkthrough about an hour before gates. And then our ballpark manager on duty, who oversees all of the departmental manager on duties, we just report up to them that our specific spaces are ready and what we oversee. So obviously facilities, we're overseeing what we do. Our events crew oversees our ushers and ticket takers, and then our security staff as well. Anywhere from IT to scoreboard, we're all reporting into the same ballpark manager on duty. But yes, that's when the walk takes place, where we're checking everything. But like Bill talked about earlier, the trust of people is the biggest part. We can't be everywhere all at once. So you need to have people you can trust to get the job done when it's assigned, because you're not able to check every single thing or check behind people.
Yeah. Bill Wepner, do you get up on the roof and walk your roof and do some of the things that they like that, or do you rely on your HVAC and your roofing vendor?
We get up on the roof every once in a while. I got a maintenance technician that he'll typically go up there and check it. Definitely after every storm, we're going to get up there just to make sure. We don't have any trees right next to our building, but we always want to make sure. You don't know what's going to happen in the upstate area when you get a storm. So we do get up there and we walk around, but we've also got PMs and stuff like that are our vendors do as they're going throughout the year.
Do you try to have a game plan for the day? Do you
try? Yes. Does it ever work? No. I write out a plan, and then I should just set it on fire when I get to work. But I think I do it out of habit, but yeah, very seldom. I got stickies all over the wall. You can't see it. They're all over the wall.
Oh yeah. Well, I wondered about that, because I'm the kind of person, I'll have a general direction, but even doing what I do, you know, you know, you're going to get pulled in a lot of different things. So if
Absolutely.
you have 1, 2, or 3 big things on the board, Stormy, and then I'm going to talk to you, Sarah. Stormy, tell me this. Tell me what you tell folks about a day in the life and preparing for your day. How do you win the day as a facility professional?
I think the important thing and clearly nobody can stick with any routine schedule every day. But I think what we usually counsel FM organizations to do is have a quick, if you can, meeting early in the morning with your key people and identify what the burning imperatives are for the day. What are the things that are going to make or break your facilities organization that you already know about at that hour of the day? And so you can make sure, do you have to triage? Do you have to put aside something you are going to do to make sure that, you know, there's a leak or there's something else that's happening somewhere, a major issue? What are you going to get a call from the 12th floor from the senior executive saying, hey, how come you're not dealing with this issue right now? So-and-so says this is happening. And we used to call those the burning imperatives. They're going to make or break your organization for that day. And then I think at the end of the day, if you can take 5 minutes of your time to kind of figure out what lessons have we learned from today, what did we do well, what is on the docket for tomorrow, did that burning imperative get finished? Do I have to make a call to my manager, my CEO, or somebody that, you know, was having that issue come down to us? You need to make sure you've got closure on that, because you try to start each day with things that are going to not be in your area of schedule. And so you need to make sure you take care of those critical things and then make sure the things that are on your docket don't slip by the wayside for too long either.
I like that. Sarah, what do you think? Getting your day started, getting your mind right for the day, right?
Absolutely. The first thing that I always do is and encourage other facilities management professionals to do is learn how to prioritize. A no doesn't mean no forever. A no can mean no for now, because we have to know how to prioritize. There are going to be certain things that safety, security, those things take precedence over everything else. And so we have to learn how to prioritize those things. Doug said something last week that I really loved. And when we were talking about SOPs, he said SOGs, standard operating guidelines. And those guidelines are critical. Like that blew my mind whenever he said that. I was like, I never thought of it that way, because there's not a one size fits all for every situation. Everything that we do needs to be scalable, sustainable, and repeatable, which means we need to be able to do it at every site, scale up or down, and make sure that we're doing it correctly. And so having those guidelines around how we generally handle things is critical. And so the first thing, learn how to prioritize. Stormy, I loved your comment about making sure that we're getting with those stakeholders, those critical business partners, to understand what we have going on, understanding how to take those messages at 10,000 feet with the executive team and translating them to the language that hourly employees and technicians speak, to make sure that we're able to do those things. And so for me, prioritization and then those standard operating guidelines to say, hey, it may not work this way every time, but general ballpark, this is how we're going to run and this is how we're going to handle it. And knowing how to make sure that the most critical things are getting done first, and we're prioritizing everything else in a way that we have those SLAs, that we have the scope of work, that we know what we need to do, and then we can set those up for the docket for, you know, have an SLA with your internal business partners where something fell off the wall. Okay, we'll get to that in 72 hours. Right now, we have an HVAC situation that's leaking and it's causing water damage. Because like we talked about last week, water is one of the worst things that we want to hear as facilities managers, water and sewage. We don't want to hear those things that when they come out. And so it's really understanding the business priorities, taking everything that we do and aligning it with the strategy for our corporate goals, our corporate, you know, everything that we do. We're operational support, and we need to make sure that everything we're doing is driving us in that direction to support operations. Because like Stormy said, we're not a cost center that makes money. We need to make sure that we're optimizing our cost, optimizing our spend. And if everything's an emergency, nothing is.
Yes, absolutely. So I love that standard operating guidelines. I had never heard that before. Chris, what do you think, standard operating guidelines? Does that give you some flexibility?
Excuse me. Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, we start our day off with a plan, a lot like Ken, and, you know, it typically goes to pot shortly after. But we have standard operating procedures. We work off a program called Help Desk that we prioritize the needs that we've had during the night because during the evening because our hours are 7 till midnight, 7 days a week. So this, the faculty and staff are gone. We have security here. Students study, and typically, if we let the school open, they study all night. But we make them go home. So things pop up, and I have a night guy that works, and he usually takes care of most of those. And occasionally, someone will show up that one of our outer buildings that he can't get to. And but yeah, my first thing is we have a meeting in the morning. Okay, what we got lined up here, and okay, you take care of this, and you do this, and I'll address this. And typically, I'm pulled in 9 or 10 different directions, and my job's a firefighter, just like everybody else. It's you tend to jump on the flames that are the highest during the day. But yeah, we try to stay with a standard operating procedure, but a lot of times that goes out the window 10 minutes after you get here.
Yes, I like that. I like that. Well, I want to mention Bill had to leave there, but that's kind of the point here. We're going to do this every single week. We're going to have facilities folks. We're going to be talking facilities, and it's a come and go type thing. It's so if you can only stay for a little bit, like Bill could. He stayed a long time though, didn't he, Stormy? He got quite a bit, so that was great. But Dom, thank you. I'm glad we finally connected. We were able to talk to you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I mean, with these things, you always learn more from the people around you and just connecting, as we all know, just the networking aspect. So thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Sarah, the Bomberito, great to see you again. Mr. Ken Crop, Chris, great to see you here. Chris Everett with VCOM. And Stormy, I guess we're going to be back here this coming week. Now, I've got to ask you about, do you have a new pin on this week?
I do. I have a pin this week, which is a pineapple, which is the symbol of hospitality in Virginia, even though I'm in Maryland. But I've been focused this week on RTO, return to office. And everything that I've been reading says that in order to lure people back to an office, if you're with a company that has mandated the 5 days a week now coming back to the office, we have to figure out how we do that, because so many of the people who have worked remotely have said, we're not coming back. So how do we make new welcoming overtures to people who really don't want to come back? And so there are lots of things that facility managers are talking to their senior executives about, and ways that are going to make office space more attractive and more welcoming.
Oh, wow. I love that. And that is such a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, my goodness, just right around here, we have some buildings that are essentially empty, right? Yeah. So we've got to find ways to get those folks back on campus, back in their office, back working. Hey, great episode. Enjoyed it. Hope everybody has a great day, and we will see you all here again next week.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good one. See ya.